Iniciamos el coloquio Cómo asegurar inversiones turísticas en nuevos destinos. Participan Soheir Garana, ministro de Turismo de Egipto, Miguel Fluxá, presidente del Grupo Iberostar, Tokosil Shasa, viceministra de Turismo de Sudáfrica, Stephen Holmes, presidente de Windham, y modera Jean-Claude Pomcartin, consejero delegado del Consejo Mundial de Turismo.
Thank you very much, Janine. But now it's our panel. Thank you very much, everybody. We have a great panel here. We have two distinguished representatives of the public sector, and we have two brilliant representatives of the private sector. Our ambition is to make out of that panel a business meeting. Our ambition is to keep you awake because you are hypoglycemic, I guess. And our ambition is to finish that in 1 hour time. Now, investments. What the hell are we talking about? You know, there's no money anymore. The situation is not that great. In our summit this year in Beijing, which will take place end of May, we will talk about those issues. And when I was asked to moderate that panel, it was great because it's kind of a rehearsal for me for our summit in Beijing, actually. Now, investment, I would say the panels before came out with some very fundamental points. And the fundamental points is, do we really want to make public and private sector partnership? And investments, not only for countries, but also for difficult situations as you are in now, are maybe the ultimate test of public and private sector partnership. Taleb, we keep talking about that, and I think here we have something which is the beginning of the awareness of public and private sector partnership. Now, like in every business meeting, you know, we go around the table, and I will ask each of my panelists to say a few words about how they feel investment could be attracted to their destination or to a destination, which would be even better. I will start with the lady, of course. We are gentlemen here. I don't introduce the panelists again because you know them. Taco, why don't you take 2, 3, 4, max 5 minutes to explain to you about how you perceive that?
Thank you very much, and good day, everybody. I am from South Africa, as you have known. Thank you very much for the opportunity. South Africa has prioritized tourism as one of the growing sectors in the country. It has been growing over the years. The last recordings in 2008 recorded 8% growth, and even during the recession, we recorded a positive 2% growth. But mostly it has been driven by the private sector. And now with the new government in 2009, the tourism has grown to be one focus area. And as such, government is taking leadership to begin to say, what is it that we can do to grow tourism and not leave it to be a private sector initiative only? And for us, it had seen a partnership developing between the private sector and government. And what we've identified as part of the investment into tourism was looking into, one, making tourism known and everybody to participate in tourism. And as such, what are the kinds of skills that are required? Because we've seen some of the jobs that have been created, at times they are low-level, unskilled jobs, and we calculate the numbers, but we're saying we want quality jobs because we want to provide quality service. And as such, government has embarked together with the public sector, with the private sector, on skills development. So we've put together a fund that begins to look into how do we put and train those who are already in the industry so that they have the requisite skills, so that we are able to provide the best for our people who come to visit our shores. So that in itself has provided one priority area. The second one is further looking into the future to say we have those who would be introduced to tourism who are at the school level, because we introduced tourism even at school level. How then do we make sure that we have the industry itself working together with the institutions that are providing the training, but also an interaction forum with those who are then joining or getting trained or at school level. So we have annual forum. For instance, in the last year, it attracted more than 11,000 people, the youth from schools, those who have graduated from the institutions, and the people from the industry to interact so that people have a sense and also are able to understand the gaps that are there. Because government now is taking a center position to begin to take leadership, because we're looking into how we can make sure that we are providing a platform for all the role players to participate, because all of us from the side of business, we're looking at how they are able to profit and also are able to assist government in terms of its economic growth.
Thank you, Taco. Thank you very much. What you just described for South Africa Inc., because I like to say Egypt Inc., Spain Inc., you are competing in a world, you know. So South Africa Inc. is giving and putting in that investment business plan of yours education. How do we get those human resources ready to attract investors, to make them confident that that is something which they will get when they invest in South Africa Inc.? Miguel, I would like, first of all, I asked him to, I will not introduce him to you because everybody knows him. I'm a very authoritarian moderator, so I asked him to speak English, and he kindly agreed. So please, all our Spanish members and guests here, excuse me, but I asked him to speak English.
Okay.
So what is your perception?
Well, my perception is that probably is the worst moment in many years to speak about investment in any country.
I would agree.
Because when we started we invested in our first hotel 18 years ago in Dominican Republic. Our cost per room was $40,000. Today, you don't build a hotel, a five-star hotel, not super luxurious, but a good five-star hotel, for less than $220,000. If you add to that the cost has increased in all these countries, that all these countries, they need incomes to survive, and the taxes, they go higher. At the same time, you have a situation where today to have credits and loans from the banks is very difficult for the reason we all know. It's not the best time. However, I think there is a possibility to do things in tourism. Tourism has an attraction from most of the countries because it generates a lot of employment, not only direct employment, but only indirect employment. Practically, you double the direct employment with the indirect employment.
Very true.
And also is a mean to communicate different communities, different countries. And I think besides the financial and the economical help that has given to many countries, is a human side of communicating and understanding the problems in the different countries, which is something we never evaluate.
Miguel, just one thing here. You're giving a message to governments now, what you just said. You said governments understand the value of travel and tourism. What message would you give to governments and say, how do you help us to put those investment packages together?
Well, I believe the different governments, they have not always to express that they want tourism. They have to act in a consequent way. For example, the bureaucracy that you find in many countries is terrible. Sometimes you delay investments and the timing is not so correct when you have the permissions. On the other side, the education, as the minister said before, is very important. You have many countries with people, they don't know how to write. They don't know how to have the profession. And one of the biggest satisfaction for our company has been able to be in countries where we have been able to just teach people how to write, how to read, and at the same time to teach a profession, a hotelier profession, and at the same time to give a job. This is the best thing you can do for a person. And I believe the countries, they should know that. And at the same time, at the beginning when you go there, they offer a lot of things. But afterwards, the taxes are going harder, the labor conditions are going much more strict, which is good because everybody, if there is a benefit for the hotels, it has to be a benefit for people who work in the hotel to live better. And on this, we don't have anything against it, all the contrary. But I believe one of the most important things, and most of the hoteliers who has invested in different countries, we have got problems, is on a reliable legal system. Sometimes you buy a land and then you find that this land is not legally correct, or maybe somebody has rights in this. And all this, I think the governments who wants to have investments, they should help the investors to clarify the situation and advise them on the right direction.
What you just said is that you need visibility, you need transparency, you need a good property law, which no hidden aspects into it. We will come to something else afterwards, which is the new ecological trend. No government in the world, in my point of view, as I know, has come out with a package of saying to companies, that's what we will request from you when you make an investment as far as ecological friendly practices. So, but we will come, what is important, what you just said, the second thing important is the red tapes. The red tapes is important. You know, as a president of WTTC, sometimes I can say things my members cannot say. And I'm very happy sometimes to say to governments, be careful. You are in competition. And if your red tape, if your bureaucracy doesn't understand that, you are in trouble because the money gets invested somewhere else. If you allow me now, I might turn over to Amir here because he is, I don't have to again to introduce him, it would be an insult to him. But he has that understanding of public and private sector because he is a private sector practitioner. How many years? 30 years. Well, more or less. What I would like you to tell us, how you perceive that investment issue, you know, and in the context we talked about already, and how you, because you have developed fantastic new results, you know, the Red Sea, the whole results over there. How do you make an investor confident that Egypt is the right place to put his money? Because let's never forget, once you build a hotel, it's not like an airplane, you can take it to another place. You have it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
No, I assure you, they'll find the technology one day to move hotels from one country to another. No, but let me first, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Jean-Claude. Now, for two things, as far as how to attract investments, I want to talk globally more than to be more focused on Egypt. We are, I believe that any potential investor, definitely, if he identifies exactly the potential of the destination where he wants to invest, this is a very big plus for any developer. And then, of course, if you can give examples of return on investments, which is a lot of cases either in Spain or Greece or Egypt or in South Africa, all over the world, definitely this is the biggest success story. One major issue, and I totally agree with Miguel about what he said, is about how you facilitate things for an investor. He goes to a destination or to a country where he doesn't know anything. He sits with ministers or heads of investment authorities, and then he goes and he's on his own. He's never guided, and there is never a proper manual of how he should work. Some are very patient and very persisting on following up on their investments. They do actually go ahead with it and they take the risk, but a lot gives up the investment opportunity and he just turns around. And that's why roles of governments, and this I don't believe very much in PPP, but as much as I believe that the role of government is actually to create the atmosphere for anybody to work in a proper environment, and that's through regulations. Government roles is to being regulators and not operators, especially in our industry. In tourism industry, government roles is to create a proper infrastructure for everybody to work. If you go around the world, 90% of the investments actually invested in the tourism industry is done by the private sector.
Sure.
And this is our role, to have the full backing for them, to have regulations that facilitates their life, their business environment, their day-to-day work, and to have a transparent rule or rules regarding, for instance, taxes, regarding permits, land use, you name it. So I believe this is the only way if you want to actually attract investors anywhere in the world, is to have these points in order, and I assure you, any country will fly with if they have this clearly.
As you can see, we are little by little building up the business case of investments. And we have the human part. We had the property laws. We had now we have something which is less tangible, the trust. And the trust is built when you help an investor from A to Z. And that's what you just said, Amir. We will come back to that because I think it's important. I just want to welcome Alan. Thank you for joining us. I think Costa Rica is a good example of how investments can be attracted in a more, I would say, environment-friendly way. But before that, Steve, I would like you to jump in now into that debate and tell us what you feel, how we build that plan of action, that business plan, how to attract investments for travel and tourism, for new destinations, and in difficult times.
Terrific. Thank you, Jean-Claude. And I will give a little bit of an introduction of myself and the company because, like my esteemed colleagues, I am probably not known, and our company may not be as well known to many of you. Wyndham Worldwide is a global hospitality company. We're the largest franchisor of hotels. We have over 7,000 hotels affiliated with us. But in the European sector, probably where we're best known is for our rental business, where we rent about 60,000 homes, villas, and cottages. So we're very familiar with doing business in a number of different countries and some of the attributes that make it attractive to enter those countries and some that have held us back from going more heavily into the country. In addition, we own a company called RCI, which is a large exchange company for the timeshare industry, which provides services to allow you to go from wherever you might own to another resort in another location. So let me just start for one moment talking about investment. Investment is, it's not altruistic, it's not charitable. We are making investments, as everyone else is, to try to get a return on our investment. And when you make a decision about where you're going to deploy your capital, where you will invest, you make that determination based on the environment that you're investing with and who you are investing with. So in our case, the understanding of how the government is positioned for tourism, the willingness to invest. Toko was talking about training that they are now dedicating to their citizens to train them for the hospitality industry. While that may not be a large budget item, that is a very large statement that the government is making, that they have a willingness to invest in their people and invest in their people in the tourism sector. So actions speak much louder than words, and sometimes the actions don't have to be large, but they have to be significant in the impact that they will have on our decision process, which means trust is very, very important, knowing there's stability in place, and knowing that there's a willingness, a long-term willingness to make tourism an important portion of the economy. I'll leave it.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. Steve didn't say it, but he's also the chair of our Americas for WTTC. And,
my most important job.
and we don't pay him for that. He pays for it. Thank you very much, Steve. Alan, I'm glad we found you, by the way. Yes. But it's important that you sit on that panel, because I was going into another dimension of that business plan for investors to invest in a country, which is environment. And your country has positioned itself as an environmental motivated country. Now, help us to integrate in that business plan environment. What would be the recommendation to South Africa Inc., to Egypt Inc., to Spain Inc.? What would be your recommendations about what to do to make the investors confident, because you had investors and you have very good investors in your country, to make them confident that they can invest in an environmental positive type of hotel or resort?
Right. First of all, we have to mention that we are dealing with an international crisis in terms of developing new infrastructure in tourism, as in general infrastructure for our countries. So the main issue here is that the governments should include into their policies a way of helping the investors in order to finance those projects that are needed in order to satisfy the needs of the touristical industrial sector. So the policy of the government should be also not only to enhance the investors to go to Costa Rica, but also to have the ways of financing the projects. There's another important issue regarding the development of new infrastructure in tourism, and that is the way in which the government can help the persons that want to invest in the country in order to fulfill all the requirements that are needed in order to build the project. That is, for example, in our case, that we are a country that have the main issue of conservation of the natural resources. As you know, Costa Rica has a very good strategy in enhancing sustainable tourism, but also ecotourism as its main issue. So there are some requirements that have to be fulfilled by the investor, including, for example, an environmental impact assessment study. And the government should require from the investor the fulfillment of that requirement, but also it's important for the government to help the investor in order to have a very good product in this issue that I'm putting as an example.
So it's a little bit like Amir say, take them by the hand and show them what to do during the process.
Yes, in every step of the way. I mean, not only in the environmental regulations, but also in the general regulations that are required for the construction of a project.
One thing I would like to ask you, because the previous panels, some of those panelists were raising their hands and saying, for example, the EU is going to come out with tons of regulations as far as environment is concerned. Some countries might come out with taxes on the environment. What would you, as a successful country in environment policy, advise us, or advise them, the Europeans, what to do and how to convince the European Commission that maybe the better way would be your way and not the way they are going to nowadays?
Well, I think that sustainability is the main issue in every kind of concept that you may have as a policy, not only in the government side, but also in the investor side. We know about the climate change issue, for example, that we are dealing right now, not only in the United Nations Environmental Program, but not only the Protocol of Kyoto, but there are other environmental issues very important. For example, the Protocol of Desertification or the Montreal Protocol that are related with the environment, but also with the possibility of humankind to subsist. So I think that a policy should be over here to have a very good sense in knowing that the impacts of the projects will also have an environmental issue included in them. So I think that is the right way in order to have not only a sustainable tourism industry, but also a sustainability in all the activities that we are dealing with in humankind.
Thank you, Adam. Last question, and then I come back to the other panelists. We in the private sectors, our aim is to make our shareholders happy. Do you have the feeling that that policy we could include in our business plan a kind of a promise to investors that the margins in an environmental friendly type of operation or sustainable type of operation are higher than others?
It may be higher for some of the investors that want to deal with a project, but I mean, the requirements are not supposed to be as much inflexible. So there should be a balance in between the government policies and the policies of the industry, the touristical corporation that wants to deal with a project. So, I mean, the balance is always important. There's always some kind of policy of the government included in all kinds of environmental issues, and that's the way to obtain the sustainability in order to enhance a project which is going to be also promote and market in the international basis, and the tourists will go to this project which is sustainable. If it's not sustainable, the tourists will not come to the...
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Now, Steve, please.
Well, I was just going to add that it is the new reality. From an investment standpoint, we have to assume that the sustainability, the green issues will be addressed. They have to be worked into our pricing and our thought process. But if the rules are stable, then you feel comfortable making the move. If you have an unstable environment where you're not really sure what the rules will look like in the future, it's very difficult to begin to venture into that marketplace with a changing landscape.
And that's what takes us back to what we are trying to say here. It has to be persistent rules, visibility, 20, 30, 40 years. Now, I would like, if you allow me, to go to, I was not struck, but it was interesting. The gentleman from Morgan Stanley in a previous panel, when we were talking about how do you consider travel and tourism compared to other type of investments, he said it's seasonal. He said it's prone to be affected by variations of is it economic, is it political, and so on. So in other words, I had a little bit of a feeling that if he would have a choice, he would not have invested in travel and tourism. He would have invested in something else, automobiles or whatever. What could we, all of us here, put in our business plan to make them feel comfortable and make them feel that travel and tourism is something that's worth investing in?
First of all, there were two quotes during different panels. One said, when business is good in tourism, everybody's happy. When it's bad, it goes bad. But if you make the comparison, which I don't think ever anybody did it, if you see the comparison of the people working in the travel industry worldwide and the investments that they have incurred in either hotels or travel agencies and all related services, and you compare, sorry to say it, the bankruptcies that took place in industrial and commercial and agriculture projects, the percentage of tourism industries bankruptcies is much lower.
Important.
Though this is a fact. Banks or financial institutes, why there is always the concern about financing in bad times, though we should finance in bad times because when business is going to be rebound, we want to be there. But actually, and this is what the Secretary General today in his opening speech said, governments, they don't acknowledge tourism till today properly, in spite of being a major contributor to a lot of economies. It's not the case. We should sell our case. We should make governments believe in what we are doing. And that's why in the future, and I had this discussion with the Secretary General that it's going to be one of his very important files and missions to pass this message to governments.
No, you're right, and by the way, the fundamental mission of WTTC is to raise awareness about the importance of travel and tourism. And with my friend Taleb, we are going to tackle that because it's amazing how few countries in the world, from the top down, give that message, And so convince government to be engaged and be aware of the importance of travel and tourism and say it and state it. Miguel, would you help us to, with those investors?
What I believe is that since the end of 2008, we never had any doubt, any problem about our business because it has been increasing persistently. However, I think the situation we have today is that we are paying the consequences, not of the hotel industry, but the speculation that it has been in the last 15 years. Everybody who was on the construction business wanted to build a hotel because it was nice to have a hotel. Many people build hotels in order to sell them more expensive to other people. So this has created a situation which the real hotelier hasn't created. And I believe this has damaged our industry tremendously. Today, we have a problem, for example, in our country, of an excess of...
Tell us a little bit about your country, actually.
Well, in our country...
Sebastian was very clear this morning, but I want you to underline that.
No, in our country, it's a little bit long to explain, but we trend to make guilty the international situation to what happened in our country today. But our problem, it doesn't come from 2009, it came from before. Because when you are a pioneer in any business, you make the good things and you make the big mistakes. And now we are paying some of the mistakes we have done through this year. For example, we haven't kept the nature in certain areas in the way we should have done, like in Costa Rica. We have got too quick progression, which has damaged the education of the people and many other systems. The amount of hotels which has been put on the market has been creating a big pressure on the prices. And today, in any type of industry, it's very easy to cut costs. The secret is to increase incomes. And now we have the problem that to increase the incomes is not so easy. However, in Spain, in the last 8 years, from 2000 to 2008, Spain has lost 1.5 in the PIB, Product Interior Brut, which means a loss from 11.8 to 10.2. At the same time, the tourist capacity has increased on 1.4 million new accommodations. It has been a part which had been residential, but also on the hotel industry. The nature, of course, had suffered. The expenses of the tourists went down. For example, in the year 2000, the average tourist spent in Spain 64 euros per day. Today, in 2008, which is the latest figures we have available, it was 59 euros, so we have a decrease. The income that the country had on tourism on 2000 was 15,000 million euros. In 2008, it was 50,000 million euros, 5,000 million less. And the biggest problems we have got, it has been on the coast of Spain and in the islands, because it's where we have been building too much. At the same time, the central government, I think, to give a solution to our problem is a lot to debate, because this has to be a big debate. And I think the professionals of this industry with the government, we have to sit together. We have to talk deeply about the problems without any type of coverage. We have to be very clear of what is going on. And because Spain still has so much to do and so much good in our country, that what we should do is to try to admit our mistakes and try to solve them. For example, I think the government now is trying to regenerate areas which are obsolete. For example, I think the first case in Spain will be in Mallorca, in Arenal, which is one of the pioneers of the tourism in this country. And it's very important that the government, together with the private sector, we push together this regeneration, because this can be a tremendous example for other areas in the country.
Absolutely. I think we hope, and let's make a strong wish here, that what you just said will be done tomorrow, and not after tomorrow. And definitely when we meet next year at the same conference, we will not say we should do that, but we would hear about what are the results of that massive public and private sector partnership you need in this country. Would you agree with that? And so we went a little bit beside that business plan we want to develop, but not that much, because if investors feel that public and private sector partnership, the real one, that is to say decision-making one, is taking place, they would definitely invest. Now, Taco, you are hungry for capital also, for money to develop investments. So just briefly, what would you put in that in our business plan for South Africa Inc. As far as attracting investors who have the choice to invest wherever they want to?
I think earlier on we've placed a emphasis on the fact that government has to take leadership. It has to be clear what its contribution is, and in that way, it provides a conducive environment. We have a prime example of private and public sector partnership in South Africa with the 2010 FIFA World Cup, where government has put up a lot of public sector investment in terms of stadia, roads, airports, and the like. And if you're looking into the total investment that government has put in place, it goes to about 2.8 billion euros. And because the environment and that is done also in consultation with the public, with the private sector, so it is understandable by all what needs to be done so that you don't run away as government, that private sector remains having to get profits out of what they put in. So it has to be clarified what role and what is it all of us have to do, because all of us have agreed that we want to promote the destination South Africa, all of us, and it is out of what we can put together. So private sector on the other side put in an investment of about close to 2 billion euros in hotels and resorts. So now, whilst you would be looking into that as a 2010 or FIFA 2010 World Cup kind of investment, but together we've put together a sector strategy for over 5 years that looks into what then do we do to sustain what we would have put in place. Because we are not looking at it going off after 2010. And the kind of investment that has been put in place for us is a stepping stone that begins to open more opportunities into the world. Because without business and government working together to design what has to be done, it's not possible to attract international ones. So as a country, South Africa, we are a competitive country. For instance, more than 50 airlines are running into our country, making about 230,000 landings into the country. So it's an open kind of market, but which is regulated, but business understand what has to be done because there are proper guidelines that are there even before they come.
Well, that you just added a new chapter. You know, we had the chapter commitment of the government to travel and tourism. But now you added a new chapter, which is public infrastructure investment from governments. Because definitely, if you choose a country, you choose the country which invests the most in travel and tourism, roads, airports, sewage, whatever. And I think that's an important part of the chapter. When you developed your new destinations, you had that in mind, of course. You developed airports.
There was private partner project, but also that we gave a lot of BOT airports, for instance, marinas. We gave it, and it has proven, especially in remote areas, that it's an excellent formula. But also, you see, there is a very big difference at this when you put this formula together. Definitely the public sector or the governments, they implement a lot of regulations on the private sector. And private sector he has to take quick decisions, moves quickly. Once he has this formula, there is a lot of restrictions on his operative, on day-to-day work. So definitely, if you have it, if you just set the regulations and put the rules and all the regulations needed, I think this is the best formula, from my point of view.
Great. The organizers tell me that they told me 2.5 minutes ago that we have only 5 minutes left. I thought we had 3 hours because it's a very important subject. Now, to wrap it up, I think we have given at least an approach to what could be a investment-friendly policy to a country, which goes from the governments, you governments, please, let us do our business, help us to do our business. You are the conductor of the orchestra, but don't be the player of the orchestra. The other thing we said is to give us clear partitions, you know. Where do we play? How do we play it? And don't change it every 6 months or every government. You government have to find out ways that all that goes, that transparency, that visibility goes for the next 20 to 30, 40 years, because that's what we invested in. We also have said something very important, which is, I would say, the social environment approach is we together, because we do the training in the private sector, we government do the education. We have to educate people. We have to educate local communities. We have to have a long-term view. We have to integrate in our plans what is on environment, for example, what we have to do. So in other words, if we as Country Inc. come out with a type of offer like that, we might be more successful in attracting and make investors entrepreneurs, because let's face it, our industry is maybe one of the most entrepreneurial industry in the world. Be confident to convince investors and to go into a country. First of all, I would like to thank you, because pretty soon I will be told that it's over, you know. I want to thank you very much, all of you, for it. It was very short. We are a little bit frustrated because we could have spoken about that, and that business session should have taken hours and hours and days, most probably. What I also would like to thank you about is that in a situation where things, that's what I was talking about, that in a situation like that, we are confident about the future. And the last message I would give, and I'm sorry, it has nothing to do at all with investments. It has something to do, my friend Michael Frenzel is here, raised his hand and said, what is going on in Brussels? How is it possible that we get those restricting regulations on airlines, on delays, on please, let's be all together. We have to get all that economy in the air, if I may say so, Michael. And that would be the last. You're doing it fine in Egypt. And I would love to appoint you as an advisor to Brussels, but you are too expensive anyway, because you do the right thing over there. Thank you very much, all of you, and let's have a good lunch.